Alright, forget the dumb stuff, we're about to get right into this one. If you have already seen the first video, then you already know the drill, but if you haven't, like, what is you doing, my guy? Go watch that, then go watch this, like, you straight bugging. But if you've seen the first part, you would know that I'm collaborating with my guy Niall from the Culture Crypt, which you guys should definitely check out on Instagram. My man's just passed 5,000 followers, so big congrats to him. But yeah, but he posts some dope stuff and some good reads on there about black art, so definitely support him. He's really knowledgeable of a lot of things, but when it comes to the clips and the Neptunes, he really knows his stuff. He'll be covering the unreleased music in the legacy section of this part about the Neptunes, which I'll cover the years from 2011 until now. Comment and tell me if Niall and me should do videos like this again and telling from the last video. It seems like you guys are really rocking with Niall, and that's what's up, because yo, I mess with Niall too. Also, you guys should follow me on Instagram as well. If you guys like the content, you guys should like, comment, share the video, and subscribe to help the channel grow. I reply to pretty much almost all the comments, and I love going through them and seeing what you guys think. Comment down below your favorite unreleased tracks if you know some. Maybe you can comment down below where you were at in life when the Neptunes was hot and how they had an effect on you, because that's always interesting. Also, let me know where you are tuning in from. Represent where you are from. Definitely stick through until the end of the video, because the unreleased section will be crazy, and Niall has been so gracious to bless everybody with some links to some music, which I'll pin and put in the description. Without further ado, I'll give you the second episode of the Neptunes documentary. Now, this section of this video won't be like how me and Niall did it last time, which was exactly year by year, because at this point in the story, the Neptunes were starting to slow down as far as being on a bunch of records. It wasn't like 2002 or 2003 when they were on like 20 plus singles. At this point, it was more so like a track here and there. In 2011, the Neptunes are only credited for being on 2 singles. The first single was Trouble on My Mind by Pusha T featuring Tyler the Creator. And don't worry, we'll get into Tyler the Creator a little bit later. Rhyming accidentally. But this was the lead single to Pusha T's project Fear of God 2, Let Us Pray. By the way, I mentioned during a Pusha T documentary in the last part, and no one said anything. So if you guys really want it, like, let me know, because I I was at least expecting somebody to say something, but no one said nothing. But the other single that was released that year was Gotta Have It off of Jay-Z and Kanye's Watch the Throne album. Now, according to a Def Jam A&R, the Gotta Have It beat came from a beat battle between Kanye and Pharrell. Kanye and Pharrell would go back and forth playing beats, and then they eventually blended the beats of their best efforts together to form this track. Just imagine being in a room and witnessing a beat battle between these two. That would have been insane, and that's a dope little story, because that beat is actually sick in my opinion. The next year, in 2012, the Neptunes are only credited on being on 1 single, which was Jay-Z's song Glory, which featured his daughter Blue Ivy and contained background vocals from Pharrell Williams. Fun fact, Blue Ivy is actually the youngest person to appear on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and the second youngest Grammy Award winner. But after Glory, the Neptunes weren't credited on a track until 3 years later in 2015, when they appeared on 2 tracks off of Snoop Dogg's album Bush. The songs were So Many Pros and California Roll. Then 2 years later, NERD will release their latest album, No One Ever Really Dies, in December of 2017, and the album would peak at number 31 on the Billboard 200 chart. In the last part, I brought up how Pharrell felt about the past 2 NERD albums before this, which was Seeing Sounds and Nothing. Those 2 projects didn't have the best reviews, but No One Ever Really Dies actually received positive reviews, and the album featured the single Lemon, which featured Rihanna. This track would peak at number 36 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Pharrell also claims that the original beat and the second half of the track was originally made for Diddy, then got passed to Rihanna, before they ultimately decided to keep the track for their own album. Then the next year in 2018, the Neptunes would finally link up again with Justin Timberlake on the track Supplies from his album Man of the Woods. Then we have another 2 years with no credit until 2020, where the Neptunes were credited on 4 songs. They collab with Deadmau5 on the song Pomegranate, collab with Jay-Z again on the song Entrepreneur, had a song with Monica and Lil Baby called Trenches, and had a song with SZA and Ty Dolla $ign called Hit Different, which peaked at number 29 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and that was the first time the Neptunes had been in the top 30 on that chart in years. The last time they appeared that high on the chart was all the way back in 2006 when they produced the song Wind It Up off of Gwen Stefani's album The Sweet Escape, which peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. Also in 2020, you have the mess with Kelis and the Neptunes, where Kelis accused the Neptunes of keeping the profits from her first 2 albums. She claimed that she was told that her, Pharrell, and Chad were going to split the whole thing 33, and that allegedly never happened. I think that this is like the millionth reminder to you musicians out there to read your freaking contracts. Yo, read your contract. I get it's bad if you signed a bad deal, but you signed it, so I can't feel that bad for you if you signed it yourself. Ain't nobody make you sign it, you signed it yourself. Like, yo, like you had the opportunity to go over it and things, and you hear this story so much about people being screwed and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to bash anybody in this case, like I'm just saying this artist in general. But yeah, but read your contracts and know what you're about to sign before you sign it. Anyways, in 2021, we haven't seen anything from the duo as of yet, but now at this point in this section is when I'll split the two and focus on solo work that they've done in the latter years of their career. I'll start off with Chad Hugo, and aside from his work with the Neptunes post 2007, he's actually produced for artists like Kenna, Mos Def, E40, linked back up with No Malice, who was formerly known as Malice of the Clips, but as many of y'all know that No Malice bowed out of the Clips and really changed his life and gave his life to God. Chad Hugo has also produced for The Internet and Brockhampton. He's still a pretty low-key guy and does the occasional show or DJ set. He still continues to be involved in music, and Pharrell always makes sure to credit Chad and has said that the Neptunes was never a one-man show. If you heard the first part of the first episode where Chad is talking about Pharrell's genius, you hear him talking about how Pharrell would have a beat in his head or a sequence or idea in mind for a song, and Chad takes those things and laces them. Another thing Chad would do is that, unlike Pharrell, Chad lacked a vocal presence on the mic, but Chad had a pivotal role when it came to writing the hooks, bridges, and melodies on several Neptune songs, particularly those on the album Justified, which is the Justin Timberlake album. Now we're about to get into Pharrell, and after all of these years, he still managed to be relevant in music, which is just crazy to me to stay relevant for so long. Once again, if you saw the first part in the series, you would know that Pharrell felt like In My Mind was a mindless album and nothing to brag about. It wouldn't be until 2013 where Pharrell had the most absolute crazy year. Like, you guys are about to like take a huge nostalgia trip, but also get filled in about how wild Pharrell's career was at the time and the numbers he was doing. We can start off with March of 2013, where he was featured on Robin Thicke's song Blurred Lines off of his album with the same name, and this song was a super smash hit. And mind you, I remember all of these songs in 2013 vividly, so I was outside when these songs came out. But I remember I couldn't escape this song because it was everywhere. It went number 1 in over 30 countries, and the song went on to be diamond according to the RIAA, which means the song has sold over 10 million copies, which is insane, and also wouldn't be the last time Pharrell would go diamond this year, which we'll get into in a bit. I'm not really going to get into the controversy of the song itself with the lyrics and the whole case where Pharrell and Robin Thicke got sued, because this video isn't really about that. But a month later, after Blurred Lines released, Pharrell appeared on the Daft Punk song Get Lucky, which was a single off of their album Random Access Memory. The single dropped in April of 2013. This song was huge and peaked at number 2 on the US Billboard Hot 100 for 5 consecutive weeks, and as of today, it is 4 times platinum. Fun fact about the song is that from start to finish, it took about 18 months to complete. Pharrell also appeared on the song Lose Yourself to Dance as well off of the album Random Access Memories. That same year, Pharrell would strike gold again in November with his song song Happy, which was a single from the soundtrack album for the film Despicable Me 2, and also ended up being a single for his upcoming album at the time after he signed with Columbia Records. The song soared to #1 in 35 countries and also ended up being the best-selling song of 2014. A little backstory behind the song is that Pharrell recorded 9 different songs for the Despicable Me 2 producers and they didn't like them. Pharrell then went back and wrote Happy and actually intended singer CeeLo Green to sing the song, but things didn't work out even though CeeLo Green was all for it. As you guys know, Pharrell ended up doing the song himself and the rest is pretty much history. The next year, in March of 2014, Pharrell would release his long-awaited second studio album, Girl, which it peaked at #2 on the US Billboard 200, selling 113,000 copies in its first week. After this album, Pharrell has very much been doing his thing in music, still producing and being involved. I'm glad I did my research because man, I forgot about that monster year Pharrell had in 2013 with 2 of the records that he was on going diamond and another going quadruple platinum. He was on absolute fire. This pretty much wraps up my section of the video though. I think now it's time for my boy Niall to rock out and tell you a little about the influence the Neptunes have had on people, and also Niall will be getting into the unreleased music of the Neptunes as well.
Okay guys, before I get stuck in, I just wanted to clear up a couple things from part 1 of the doc. Okay, so for Super Thug, I actually said that there was an electric rock guitar that was used, and this was a mistake on my part, guys. I'm sorry about that. What I actually meant to say was a clavinet was used for the production, not a rock guitar. Sorry, just to clear up any confusion that might have been said there. Thank you guys in the comments for pointing that out. You are absolutely amazing. Now, a lot of you online have very rightly pointed out that Pharrell and Timbaland aren't actually cousins, but during my research I actually came across a few different things. Now, the Neptunes.org fan site is looked at as one of the most trusted and reliable sources for Neptunes information, and they've been blogging on the duo for what seems like decades now. Their website points out that Pharrell and Timbaland are cousins, and also point to a video in where Timbaland speaks about this, but his wording isn't very clear, and I really think this is the start of the confusion on whether Pharrell and Timbaland are actually related. In one sentence, Timbaland will say Pharrell is like a cousin, and in the other he'll say they are family. Timbaland does allude to some form of relation on their grandmother's side, but we don't have the Mosley Williams family tree, so that's as much information and light I can shed on this. But anyway guys, we're going to keep it moving and we're going to get back to the music.
It's family cool, straight from Hunterville. Damn, I fuck now, pronounce it Gunnerville. Told y'all before with my road dogs coming here. Won't gon' be shit but a bunch of blood here. Family, I bet you heard of me, but it's some cowards out there who tried to murder me. Now they got them in ICU surgery, cause I burnt their ass up to the 3rd degree.
So in terms of unreleased music, I'm going to kick things off with Norfolk's finest, Family. Now, if you were listening to Clips' debut, Lord Willin', you were going to catch Family throughout the album, especially on the track Family's Freestyle, which really let fans know Family was the next up from the Star Trek camp and he was to be watched. Family followed this up with his debut single, Rock and Roll, which was featured on the Neptunes Presents the Clones compilation, and the song also featured a remix with Lil Flip for the video. Now guys, if I'm being honest, I really think Rock and Roll is easily in my top 3 from Clones. Like when the beat comes in and Family just goes rock and roll, like as soon as his voice hits the track, it's like a bullet to the face. Like I can't over exaggerate enough how crazy this song was, and the streets were really feeling it at the time. But in terms of sales, the single really didn't perform as well as the tracks Hot Damn, which also featured Family, or Pharrell's solo track Frontin'. Anyway, in spite of this, Rock and Roll was enough buzz to get Family signed to not only Def Jam, but also Star Trek Records as well. With 2 major labels backing him, it was only a matter of time for Family to record his debut album, and in around 2003, Family started the process. The album was dubbed Train to Go and was slated for a 2004 release. Now Family actually did follow up Rock and Roll with not only its remix, but 2 additional singles. In 2004, the promo single and white label vinyl for his track Fresh and Driving, as well as the track Ambulance, which dropped in 2005 in a similar white label vinyl fashion, and both tracks featured guest appearances from Pharrell. Now despite fans adoring these tracks, neither Ambulance or Fresh and Driving performed as well as Rock and Roll, which was already a semi-lukewarm single. Now with a handful of tracks under Family's belt, but none of them quite achieving what the record label expected, both Family's labels decided to pull the plug and not release Train to Go. A lot of rap fans look at Family and Train to Go as a big rap what if, because with Clips and their album Hell Hath No Fury, they proved you didn't need big top 10 radio singles to make a classic body of work. With Family in his prime as well as working with the Neptunes in their prime, a lot of people see Train to Go as a missed opportunity, and fans to this day ask Family on the album. Despite us fans never hearing the album in full, I do know for a fact the album is in circulation. Whether people were just hanging around the Star Trek camp back in the day or their personal friends of Family, one look on Instagram and you can see various promo copies of the album posted, with many fans commenting or clamoring for the album to be dropped as an NFT or an official release. Back in March, Family actually posted a rough 2003 draft of the album he had, and the fans in the comment section were going crazy. One thing about the project we do know is there is a rough 15-track promo copy that's floating around on Discogs, which has been officially listed. The album was expected to feature guests such as Lil Jon, David Banner, T.I., Scarface, Clips, and Philly's Most Wanted. Outside of Train to Go, Family's discography kicked off with the 2003 self-titled DJ Cypher Sounds hosted mixtape. This tape was 17 tracks long and featured Family spitting over many popular tracks at the time, such as 702's I Still Love You and Pharrell's Frontin', both of course produced by the Neptunes. Outside of freestyling and remixing existing tracks, Family was sure to inject some of his own original material, such as Step Back with Lil Jon. As this tape predates the digital music boom and the blog rap era in the mid-2000s, this mixtape was really only distributed through CD. Because of this, over the years, it's become increasingly harder and harder to track down, both digitally and physically. This tape stands out even more so in the wake of Train to Go not dropping, as it really stands as one of the only few official Family projects we have. Outside of this though, Family has been keen over the years and dropped a handful of loosies such as the Beeper record in 2006, which was really popular amongst Neptunes fans, as well as his Grand Theft Shark Ghetto mixtape from around 2005. It's not really clear when it dropped, but that project was digital only. But don't worry guys, all of the Family music we've spoke about so far, with the exception of Train to Go of course, I'm going to link in the bio along with the rest of the unreleased tunes. If you're wondering what Family's been doing in the years since his heyday, he's currently a co-host on the Other Tone radio show alongside Pharrell, as well as being very active on social media. Okay guys, so this next track probably has the craziest story of any unreleased Neptunes material. And when I say this, I don't mean it's super obscure or people don't know about it. When I talk about this next record, I really mean the story behind this song and the legacy it's carried, despite not even being released, is crazy. And the song I'm talking about, of course, is Hide by Cassie. Around 2008, Cassie was hard at work on her second studio album, then dubbed Electro Love. For Electro Love, she recorded a lot of songs, and following on from her self-titled debut with tracks like Me and You, there was a lot of pressure on Cassie. At the 2009 MTV VMAs, she unveiled the track Hide for the first time. On the red carpet, Cassie gave fans a little insight into the track, saying, "The track is called Hide. We did it in LA a while ago and it's dope. I think Puff did a Ustream or something and he played a snippet of it, so people got to hear a little bit of it." From this 30-second snippet of the song, fans fell in love, and all across the blog sites, people were wondering when this Pharrell and Cassie collab was going to drop. Obviously being produced by the Neptunes, the track features a signature bridge like what we've spoken about prior, and some really interesting electro-pop production. What separates a track like Hide from other electro-pop songs at the time was the killer Neptunes Midas touch that we spoke about. The bridge is on fire. Now, months and months passed, and Cassie's second album never materialized. She did drop a handful of singles, but Hide was not one of them. Because we only had the 30-second snippet of Hide to work with, lots of fans had either looped the track, made various remixes or edits of it, and the track really gained a life of its own on the internet, and people kind of looked at it as this holy grail of Neptunes production we never got to hear in full. Rapper, producer, and overall multi-hyphenate, Tyler the Creator actually spoke about Hide by Cassie in 2011 on Twitter. In a tweet, Tyler said, "Hide by that Cassie? I wish I made stuff like that." 3 years later, Tyler reaffirmed his feelings for the track, responding to someone on Twitter saying, "I wish I had that song," atting Cassie saying, "We need Hide." In 2013, Cassie was doing a whole bunch of press for her mixtape, Rockabye Baby. In an interview with Complex, Cassie said, "Pharrell and I did a record together, and I still have it. I actually wanted to put it on the mixtape, but it just didn't fit." So despite having a snippet and Cassie regularly talking about the track in interviews, we still didn't have an official release for Hide. And by the time 2013 rolled around, the sound of popular music had already changed, therefore releasing Hide would be a lost cause for the mainstream charts. Despite this, whether it was execs, producers, you name it, the track was in people's hard drives, and around last year I actually got in contact with someone who had the song, and they said they couldn't actually share it with me because the person who had sent it to them not only said they didn't want the song to be distributed, but they had to pay a massive sum to just hear the full version of Hide. On April 8th, 2021, Hide was randomly uploaded to all major streaming platforms. This was strange because the track at this point was well over 12 years old, and it was released with no promo whatsoever. It's not clear if Bad Boy Records had given Cassie the rights to release Hide, or Bad Boy themselves uploaded the track. Hide is a really interesting song in the Neptunes mythology. It not only exemplifies the ends to which Neptunes fans will go to hear full versions of their leaked material, but also just how timeless their sound is. Like through and through, Hide is a 2009 pop record. But even in spite of this, the song still sounds great today. Especially with TikTok and the wave of kind of retro futuristic pop, the song can easily fit in there, and I'm just so glad us fans can finally hear the full thing. Okay guys, so when we did part 1, a lot of you guys were saying, how could we do the whole doc and not mention Usher? And we intentionally left it out just for this. There's not much we can say about Usher that you guys don't already know. He's a legendary R&B singer, he's got multiple platinum plaques, and about 10 songs people can name just off the top of their head alone. Usher's working relationship with the Neptunes started with his third album, 8701, which dropped in 2001. Now, if you listen to the tracks like Pop Your Collar or You Got It Bad, you can tell Usher was on smoke throughout 8701. The Neptunes produced the track To Work It Out with Diddy alongside Pharrell, as well as the high charting single, You Don't Have to Call. As a kid, I had the CD single for I Need a Girl Part 1, and its B-side was the remix to You Don't Have to Call with Ludacris. Not only this, but I remember seeing the music video to You Don't Have to Call as a kid and thinking it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. In the video, Usher's got his U-chain on, he's picking out some crazy fits, and it's really representative of the 2001 pop and R&B sound at the time. Seriously, You Don't Have to Call peaked at number 16 on the US Billboard Hot 100, and it wasn't even the biggest song on the album. Over here in Europe, Pop Your Collar was a really big success, as well as the track You Remind Me, just screaming 2000s R&B with Usher and Chili in the video. We say all this to say, 8701 was the perfect launch pad for Usher to go into his fourth album, Confessions. Now guys, I'm not going to bore you talking about Confessions, but I gotta talk about the unreleased material from the album, as if Confessions couldn't get any better already. So the next set of songs I'm going to talk about, guys, I'm just going to dub them the Usher sessions, and these range from around 2003, when the Confessions recording period started, up until 2007, where Usher prepared to release his fifth album, Here I Stand. Now back in part 1, I told you guys that the greatest romance ever sold was in my top Neptunes tracks, but I actually think Sweet Lies by Usher is a top 2, and it's not 2. Back in the day when people used to cop CD singles, a lot of them used to have B-sides and songs that didn't make the album's final cut, and Sweet Lies was among those tracks which didn't make the final cut for Usher's Confessions. When Usher's decade-defining track Yeah with Ludacris and Lil Jon dropped in January of 2004, over here in the UK, it was a 4-track CD single maxi. The first track on the single was of course Yeah. The second track was a song called Red Light, which actually appeared on the deluxe reissue of Confessions, and the final track on the CD single was the Yeah instrumental. You guys probably noticed I didn't talk about track 3, and that's because track 3 on the Yeah CD single was in fact Sweet Lies. I think this just helps to clear up any confusion, because a lot of people call the song an unreleased Neptunes Usher song of course, but it was in fact released over here in the UK and European territories on the Yeah CD single. I don't know about you guys over in the States, but I still have my CD copy of this back from when I was like a 4-year-old, and I literally picked out the other day and noticed Sweet Lies was on it. Now Sweet Lies was obviously produced by Chad Hugo and Pharrell, but it bears a compositional similarity to Justin Timberlake's song Rock Your Body. On top of this, the production is just killer, and I have no idea how they decided to scrap this song in favour of Red Light for the album. Similar to Latrell's House Party and Cassie's Hide, Usher's Sweet Lies is often regarded as not only a favourite Neptunes track amongst fans, but also some of the best unreleased music they have as well, and it's really easy to see why. If you guys haven't listened to Sweet Lies yet, I recommend you check it out ASAP. Other than Sweet Lies, the Usher sessions were also home to the tracks Wifey, What's a Guy Gotta Do, Only One, Heard a Rumor or Rumors, Certified, and Don't Take It Personal. Back in 2006, a label called Ingram Entertainment actually pressed Rumors, Wifey, and Don't Take It Personal on white label vinyls across Japan. Outside of Sweet Lies of course, I think Certified and What's a Guy Gotta Do are among my favourites from the Neptunes Usher sessions. According to the Rumour Mill, What's a Guy Gotta Do was actually a song for the Justin Timberlake Justified sessions, but as the song didn't make the cut on Justified, Usher quickly recorded the song, and it was actually slated for an early draft of Confessions. Certified on the other hand, leaked in 2009. While a majority of the Usher Neptune sessions were from 2003 to 2007, Certified stands as one of their newest recordings. With Certified leaking in 2009, many believe it was intended for Usher's 2010 album, Raymond vs. Raymond. However, because Certified leaked, the track was ultimately discarded in favour of other, non-leaked material. Now on paper, these tracks shouldn't work as well as they do. Usher is clearly a vocalist through and through, but Pharrell is definitely known as a producer first and a vocalist second. So on both Certified and What's a Guy Gotta Do, both of these songs are just straight up gold mines. Usher and Pharrell's chemistry is really on 10, and it's a real shame that none of these tracks are an official wider release. Okay, so most people would say Calypso's Hell Hath No Fury is the strongest effort the Neptunes have done in terms of producing an album back to front. What isn't common knowledge is the fact that Calypso's Hell Hath No Fury went through multiple revisions thanks to a bunch of label disputes. According to a 2003 MTV article, Hell Hath No Fury was originally due out on December 16th, 2003. This was a full 3 years before fans would get to hear the full album on November 28th, 2006. Now of course, Hell Hath No Fury failed to meet its December 2003 release date, and Clips continued recording the album in 2004 until production was halted when their label Arista was dissolved into the sister label Jive Records as a part of a merger between Sony Entertainment and BMG. Now, although we don't have the original version of Hell Hath No Fury in full, we do have peeks into what the record originally sounded like. Firstly, their track Pussycat was featured on the Barbershop 2 soundtrack, as well as their We Got It For Cheap mixtapes, and this song was meant to serve as the first quote-unquote street single from Hell Hath No Fury. Since as we're speaking about the We Got It For Cheap mixtapes, on Volume 1 there was a track called Stuntin' Y'all, which according to an interlude after the track was also a single from Hell Hath No Fury. Comparatively speaking, Stuntin' Y'all is way more lighthearted compared to the rest of the tracks we would later hear on Hell Hath No Fury, and it really shows a different direction, more so in line with Lord Willin' Clips were originally going with on the album. A lot of Clips fans call Mama I'm So Sorry one of the standout songs on Hell Hath No Fury. But what many fans didn't know was the track was originally very different to the version we hear today. In a 2003 MTV Online interview, Pusha T and Malice talk about Mama I'm So Sorry, again a full 3 years before we would hear the finalized version. The version of Mama I'm So Sorry they're referring to teases a big guest featured artist on the track. The artist in question was R. Kelly. Now, outside of R. Kelly being Public Enemy #1, rightly so, for all of his controversies, in 2003 he was a really big artist fresh off his Chocolate Factory album. Personally, I'm glad Pusha and Malice decided to scrap the R. Kelly feature on Mama I'm So Sorry and just do their own solo version, because I don't really think R. Kelly's style and Clips's were really that compatible from the outset. Anyway, in the 2003 MTV interview, Pusha said, R. Kelly. When I heard the song, I was like, damn, I need to get R. Kelly on this. We sort of took him out of his element though. Malice then interjected, Lord Willin' was very mixtape-ish. That kind of vibe, spitting hot verses over hot beats. This one is more song-oriented. We've grown more. It's fun to look back at the original version of Hell Hath No Fury with the tracks Pussycat, Stuntin' Y'all, and the R. Kelly assisted Mama I'm So Sorry. The 2003-2004 version of Hell Hath No Fury was clearly a different project, and despite the label drama making Clips very jaded, if it did do one positive, it was it made the Neptunes and the Clips refocus their efforts and craft a classic. Okay, so this next set of unreleased Neptunes material is probably the least talked about.
Keep on asking me. You won't get none. Ooh, if you keep on coming at me with it, all this pressure, baby. Baby, we gon' make it in the midnight hour when you sleep. I hope you dream me, or in the midnight hour when you creep. Have a piece of me, my baby.
Okay, so this next set of unreleased Neptunes material is probably the least talked about. Throughout the documentary, we've briefly touched upon the singers Vanessa Marquez and Natasha Ramos. Vanessa Marquez signed to Star Trek Entertainment sometime in 2002. Like we've said, she has vocals all over Justin Timberlake's Rock Your Body, as well as her own track, Good Girl, off the Neptunes Presents the Clones compilation. Now, like a lot of the artists we've discussed thus far, she was also meant to have an album which never fully materialized. On the other hand, Natasha Ramos did make a big name for herself in the industry as a background vocalist and songwriter. Most people have heard the Jennifer Lopez song Jenny from the Block, but what most people don't know is Natasha Ramos recorded the demo for this track. Although recording demos for major artists is commonplace within the industry, the crazy part about Jenny from the Block is the chorus and the ad-libs. Let me reiterate, the chorus and the ad-libs, the most key portions of Jenny from the Block, aren't Jennifer Lopez at all. She has a long history within the industry of stealing, reappropriating, and taking credit for other people's vocals. With Vanessa Marquez and Natasha Ramos making a name for themselves in the industry, it was only a matter of time for Pharrell to come up with the idea to combine the two Latin R&B voices and make them one entity. In 2005, Pharrell officially pieced together the Latin R&B trio Affair. Affair consisted of Vanessa Marquez, Natasha Ramos, and Tiffany Villarreal, briefly of the ever-rotating R&B group 702. Despite being a new entity entirely with Affair, Villarreal and Ramos had crossed paths prior. After the messy public fallout of the first Destiny's Child lineup, with Latavia and Latoya leaving the group, both former Destiny's Child members linked up with Villarreal and Ramos, amongst other R&B singers present at the time, to form a group called Angel. Angel actually recorded a whole album and had backing from R&B group Jagged Edge. In a 2017 interview with Remezcla, Vanessa Marquez said, "When Pharrell speaks, he's very passionate about something, and he can easily convince you. He just has this power," as she recounts her time with Affair. In an interview with YouKnowIGotSoul.com, Vanessa Marquez was asked about the differences between Pharrell and Chad. She said, "I love them both, but the only time that I hung out with Chad was at the studio, dinners, or album release parties. He's very down to earth. Well, they're both down to earth, but Chad is more so because he was married at the time with kids. When I would record with Pharrell, he would lay down the track and Chad would come in and add whatever instruments he thought the track needed. Pharrell would allow me to write with him, and then I would lay down my vocals, and Pharrell would call in Chad. Chad would come in and also record vocals sometimes, and he would make me do my stuff all over again. There were harmonies Pharrell would hear, and there were some harmonies Chad would hear. I don't know where they are today, we kind of lost contact, but Chad definitely adds a little extra that Pharrell needed if he was a solo producer." In the 2017 Remezcla feature, Villarreal stated Affair only got 4 songs deep over the span of 3 months. The Remezcla feature details that Villarreal was the first domino to fall from Affair. In her own words, she said she was waiting for months for official documentation for Star Trek to sign her, however, it never materialized. Around the time the group was recording songs for Affair, Villarreal was offered a record deal from Aftermath Entertainment. With no official deal from Star Trek on the table and a deal from another label, Villarreal thought that maybe Affair was looking for another girl to replace her. This then meant Villarreal signed with Aftermath, which left Affair to break apart. For a while, Marquez and Ramos did decide to stick with the Affair project, however, this was also short-lived. Marquez said, "Me and Tasha feel the same. We can't keep doing this. It's heartbreaking. I asked management, can I just talk to Pharrell artist to artist? And that was hard to do. After, he just started to get busy." This drama was unfolding, of course, around the time Pharrell released his debut album, In My Mind. With Pharrell busy with other ventures, Marquez chose to leave Star Trek Entertainment, leaving Ramos, the sole member of Affair, linked up with the Star Trek camp. Some notable tracks worth mentioning from the Affair sessions are, of course, Running Back and If You Keep On Asking Me. If You Keep On Asking Me in particular is a real smooth R&B slow jam with minimal Latin influences, but the tracks really do show off the trio's vocal capabilities. After Affair was dissolved, Natasha Ramos started work on her debut album Show and Prove. Show and Prove was due out in 2006, but as with a lot of the music we've mentioned, the record kept getting pushed back to release dates in 2007 and 2008 respectively. One of the notable tracks on the album was The Midnight Hour, and this track was re-recorded on 2 occasions. Firstly, the track was slated for Natasha Ramos's Arista 2003 debut album, Before Affair, and it was later re-recorded in 2006 for her solo album, following Affair's disbandment. No matter which version of The Midnight Hour you listen to, you are in for a treat. Straight up, this song has legs. The fact that it was able to be recorded way back in 2003 and still sound modern enough to land on an album circa 2008 was a true testament to the song's quality. In terms of production, the original version of The Midnight Hour is way more stripped back, nocturnal, and mystical. The re-recording is a lot more upbeat, with punchier drums. Personally guys, I think I prefer the original, but let me know down in the comments which version of The Midnight Hour you prefer. Unfortunately, Ramos's album was gutted at the seams. With varying and rotating track lists over the years, the album was set to feature guest appearances from Robin Thicke, Kanye West, and Pharrell. On the album, there were 6 Neptunes produced tracks, including the song Deeper, which was given to Ashanti, Till the Morning, which was given to Mary J. Blige for her Growing Pains album, and Screwed, which was set to feature Kanye West. However, his verse was discarded and assumingly applied to another song. As Show and Proof kept getting pushed back, Ramos simply let her record contract expire and her album dissolved. Fortunately for fans, you can listen to this album in full on YouTube, albeit some of the tracks aren't mixed, and we'll link it in the bio. After their time at Star Trek, both Marquez and Ramos became independent artists.
Your gangster rating declining when it's time to kill. You rewind it, as the rise goes round, you feel your eyes blinded, not from the ice, but the light from my steel. Y'all niggas never seen real bread, the strong and type to buy a car, brick, home and bike, all at the same time, I haven't either. I can't help if I'm a thug and I'm popular. I can't help if I'm a thug and I'm popular. I can't help if I'm a thug and I'm popular. I don't care where the cops go. Mama, I'm Roscoe. Hey, why is everybody always picking on me? I don't know. Could it be that my name is Roscoe P?
If you're a fan of the Neptunes, you guys already know Roscoe P Cold Chain was a North Philly native. Alongside Family, he got a lot of mainstream exposure on Clips' debut Lord Willin' on the tracks Hot Damn and I'm Not You. Our research indicates Roscoe has not one, but 2 unreleased albums. The record we're going to focus on though was his Star Trek debut, Hazardous Life. From what we can understand, Hazardous Life had a moderate budget behind it that was not only going to feature production from the Neptunes, but also hip-hop beatmaker extraordinaire, DJ Premier. The lead single from Hazardous Life was the song Delinquent, and this song really sums up Roscoe P Cold Chain in a nutshell. The track of course was produced by the Neptunes, it featured a chorus from Pharrell, and the drums really slam on this song, and the production is kind of similar to the hard-hitting bass we would get on Clips' Grindin'. What separates Delinquent though is this interpolation of Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World, which perfectly contrasts the thuggish, menacing demeanour Roscoe put forth throughout all of his material. Speaking on his then upcoming album, Roscoe said, "When you get my album, you'll get every perspective of where I'm coming from instead of just one side of me. Being in the rap industry, we tend to have one-sidedness to ourselves when we make music and we get comfortable. When we get a record that's hot, that's when we start making a gang of similar records. What Rico did, he made my album versatile. The things we were missing, he filled in those gaps and those voids." To widen Roscoe's reach, he actually went on tour with Clips and 50 Cent sometime in 2006. For the tour, fans were gifted with a CD, and the CD in question was Roscoe P Cold Chain's Hazardous Life, the mixtape. Although the project was referred to as a mixtape, the 13-track offering was really a CD sampler for his then upcoming album. Although there was a fair amount of new material on the tape, a lot of it was just snippets. We did get a full version of Delinquent and a couple of other tracks, but a majority of the material on there that was new were just teasers for tracks we were expected to get on the full version of Hazardous Life. Some of these songs were Some Will Shine and I Can't Help. Someday, I'd love to hear a full version of the track Some Will Shine. On the song, Roscoe is really flowing like Scarface, and instead of giving us street level raps, Roscoe really sounds more down to earth and personal. Sadly, like a lot of music from this era, the album was shelved, and the Hazardous Life tape remained one of the only full-length projects we had from Roscoe P Cold Chain for a hot minute, similar to Fam Lay's DJ Cypher Sounds tape. To make matters worse, in late 2008, the Philly MC was arrested for double murder according to reports from Hip Hop DX. Allegedly, Roscoe remains incarcerated to this very day. Fortunately though, a producer and close collaborator of Roscoe under the name of Ten greenlit an album called Almost Famous in 2012. According to Ten, him and Roscoe had recorded about 15 songs between 2003 and 2007, and Ten said those songs were too good to remain in the vaults. Ten further elaborated by saying, back when Roscoe was spitting in the early 2000s, he was years ahead of his time. Therefore, releasing the album in 2012, the project wouldn't sound dated, even though Roscoe hadn't rapped properly since 2008. In Ten's own words, the mixing on the project was super raw and sometimes non-existent. This was because a lot of the Pro Tools sessions that Roscoe recorded over, so if you ever listen to Almost Famous and you wonder why the audio sounds off, this will be why. Anyway, Almost Famous dropped on June 12th, 2012. It housed 9 tracks and boasted features from Jean Grey, Mila, and DP. As far as we know, none of the Neptune sessions or the snippets we heard on Hazardous Life can be found on Almost Famous. This means the only true body of work we have remaining from this era is the Hazardous Life mixtape. If there's anything we can take away from this project, is that Roscoe is really a one-of-a-kind MC who was raw, funny, and animated, and really came across like someone who you didn't want to get on the wrong side of. Following the moderate success of Pharrell's debut solo record, In My Mind, he was due to follow it up with a remix album / reworking of the project called Out of My Mind in 2007. The project was a collaboration with multi-instrumentalist James Poyser and the Roots drummer Questlove under the umbrella The Yes Sirs. The album was shelved by Interscope Records, but Out of My Mind has built up a cult fanbase in the years since it premiered. A handful of the tracks from the In My Mind sessions actually leaked online, including the tracks Mamacita with Daddy Yankee, as well as Creamsicle. Fortunately, Mamacita landed on the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift soundtrack. Although it was never intended to be featured on In My Mind, a track called Big White Spaceship leaked around this time also. The track was rumoured to be among the SBI sessions we mentioned back in part 1, however, I think this song sounds pretty modern, like the song sounds pretty in line with the music the Neptunes were making around 2005-2006. Regardless, it features vocals from both Timbaland and Magoo, but doesn't feature Chad Hugo. To my understanding, I cannot find a date for when Big White Spaceship was recorded. However, if you haven't guessed by the title Big White Spaceship, the song is heavily rooted in sci-fi themes and really sums up the Star Trek record label creative direction. Around 2006-2007, the track Creamsicle made its way onto the website MySpace. As we mentioned prior, Creamsicle was one of the 2 leftover In My Mind tracks that fans really heard in the rap blog era. Co-collaborator on the LP and Roots drummer Questlove was instrumental to the album's exposure to a wider group of people. One by one, more tracks from Out of My Mind started appearing on Questlove's MySpace, and with every 10,000 plays, a new track was made available to fans. On July 4th, 2007, the full album was made available online along with the 2 bonus tracks we mentioned prior. Around 2 years after the project's debut, in 2009, Questlove blessed fans with a fully mastered version of Out of My Mind. It boasted around 20 songs, however, depending on where you download Out of My Mind, the tracklist has slight alterations between them. Overall, I think a lot of the reworkings present on Out of My Mind work really well and complement the lively, energetic tone of the original album. James Poyser and Questlove give Pharrell a lush, almost exotic playground to rap and croon over. Arguably, the rollout of Out of My Mind was similar to the rock version or re-release of NERD's In Search Of, as Pharrell attempts to swap the OG Neptune style batch of beats with something more raw and vibrant in its approach. Not all of the reworkings present on Out of My Mind are as great as their originals though. Raspy-ish doesn't fit the funkier vibe of the album at all, and neither does the rework of Frontin'. It's kind of hit or miss overall. Still, I think Out of My Mind does correct a lot of the critiques that were fired at Pharrell's In My Mind, and in all honesty, it's a completely new album. My favourites from the project are Creamsicle, as well as the remixes of That Girl, Best Friend, and You Can Do It Too. Now for the final part of unreleased music, we're gonna come to Tayana Taylor. Now again, similar to Affair, Tayana Taylor's time with the Star Trek camp or the Neptunes isn't really brought up all that much. Today, of course, we know Tayana for being a premier artist on Kanye West's Good Music label, dropping a handful of albums, including the 2018 album KTSE. Way before this though, Tayana got her start doing choreography work for Beyonce's video Ring the Alarm at age 15, way back in 2006. This of course caught Pharrell's attention and he signed Tayana to Star Trek Entertainment in January of 2007, with a deal also in conjunction with Interscope Records. On February 5th, 2008, Tayana's debut single under Interscope and Star Trek, Google Me, was released and it was produced by Jazzy Faye. Also, the track peaked at number 90 on the US Billboard Hot R&B/Hip Hop Songs chart. Now musically, Google Me is an okay track. It's definitely not aged too well, especially in comparison to the music she would later go on to make. However, Tayana really does let her talent shine through on Google Me, boasting about her many accomplishments she'd already achieved by 2008. Google Me was followed up by a promotional song called Traffic Stop, and then she dropped her debut tape From a Planet Called Harlem, the mixtape, on August 16th, 2009. The tape featured production from Jazzy Faye, Pharrell, Mad Scientist, Frost, and Hit Boy to name a few. The tape harkened back to the Star Trek mixtapes of the early 2000s with covers of existing tracks, as well as a whole host of new material across the 25 track offering. The tape also had a host of cameos from guests including Chris Brown, Missy Elliott, Young B, and Corey Guns to name a few. I think this tape is a really good marker for Tayana's potential she would later capitalise on in the years following its release. On the project, she proved she could sing with the best of them, dance with the best of them, perform with the best of them, and really let her stage presence ooze into the music. Now of course, the album was initially penned as the prelude to her debut album on Star Trek. Whether it was titled From a Planet Called Harlem or it was self-titled is yet to be seen. A promo copy of the record is floating out there, and it shows it has 12 tracks, including Google Me, Traffic Stop, and Color Me Pink, amongst other tracks that were prominent in Tayana Taylor's MySpace era. Now unfortunately, the project was of course shelved, however Tayana would go on to do some fantastic vocals on Kanye's seminal album My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy just 2 years after Google Me dropped. With Tayana impressing on many good music and Kanye themed projects such as the Good Fridays Giveaways track, Christmas in Harlem, many people wondered where more music from Tayana could be found. Sadly, her album on Star Trek never fully materialized. Sometime around 2012, Tayana asked to get released from Star Trek Records. Speaking about the split, she said tracks like Google Me simply weren't her, and her label was pressuring her to release material like this, but she wanted to put out a different song entirely called Swag. Outside of the creative differences between Tayana and Star Trek, she felt she wasn't getting the attention she deserved and asked to be let go. So briefly before we wrap up, I just want to talk about one of the newest tracks the Neptunes have done. This of course is the Drake-assisted Brent Faiyaz track, Wasting Time. Released in early July 2021, the track pays homage to the Skateboard P era and In My Mind, with both Drake and Brent depicted as bait figures, reminiscent of Pharrell on the In My Mind album cover. I bring up Wasting Time because it's one of the few occasions where the Cash Money Camp has collaborated with the Neptunes since 2002. Back in 2002, the Neptunes produced Birdman's What Happened to That Boy, and if you remember from part 1, it caused a financial rift between Cash Money and the Star Trek camp, which reigned true up until relatively recently. Despite the Cash Money and Star Trek rift, there were a handful of collaborations between the two camps over the years. In 2007, around 2 years before he would sign to Lil Wayne's Young Money in 2009, a subsidiary of Cash Money, Drake released his second full mixtape, The Comeback Season. The tape housed a track called Do What You Do Remix, which actually featured Malice, now known as No Malice, who is of course one half of the Clips. This is notable to bring up of course, as this is decades before Drake would go into beef with Malice's brother, Pusha T, in the years that followed. Despite Drake not being a full-fledged member of the Cash Money label yet, he was an affiliated artist who had impressed Lil Wayne around this time, who of course was also featured on the Comeback Season mixtape. Other notable Star Trek and Cash Money songs to bring up is Tyga's Lil Homie off of his sophomore album Careless World, and Lil Wayne's Gettin' Some off the Dedication 2 mixtape. Despite these low-key collaborations, after What Happened to That Boy, Star Trek and Cash Money were low-key in a Cold War. This all ended of course in 2020 when Pharrell was interviewed on Noriega's Drink Champs and spoke about the relationship between Pusha T, Drake and himself. Pharrell said, "It still breaks my heart to this day because I would have loved to have those guys on a song together or heard a joint project together. I would have loved to twist that." Pharrell continued by saying, "By the way, Pusha says Drake got bars. When Drake makes something that's amazing, we talk about it all the time." Pharrell's peace offering was fully realised in early July of 2021, with R&B singer Brent Faiyaz releasing a collaboration with Drake produced by the Neptunes called Wasting Time. Now in my opinion, Wasting Time is R&B gold and really highlights the strengths between Chad Hugo, Pharrell, Brent Faiyaz and Drake. The song almost makes you angry at the fact that Drake and the Neptunes have never worked together prior, and it really makes you wonder what other magic they can really cook up in the studio. To summarise, me talking right now won't do much to encapsulate the influence the Neptunes have had over popular culture. from their prolific and extensive back catalogue of beats for the toughest, roughest MCs like Mystical, Busta Rhymes, and Fabulous, down to the most zany and off-the-wall pop stars like Britney Spears, Alana Davis, and Gwen Stefani, and everyone in between, the Neptunes have truly done it all. The best way I can summarise and capture the Neptunes' talent and wide reach was the fact that in 2003, the Neptunes produced a staggering 43% of all songs played on US radio, and 20% of all the tracks played on British radio. All of the Neptunes' musical influence and prolificality ran parallel to their wide net of cross-platform ventures such as fashion, where the duo westernized the Japanese brand A Bathing Ape and rocked their in-house streetwear brand BBC Ice Cream in their videos and red carpet events. This move set the precedent for the cross-pollination we would see in the years following between the music industry and the fashion industry. The Neptunes set the precedent for high fashion and rap music, paving the way for people like Travis Scott, while also subtly de-emphasizing the importance of hypermasculinity in their approach by embracing skate culture, non-atypical styles, and just being themselves through and through. The duo's futurist vision has made both Chad Hugo and Pharrell Williams stand the test of time, and unlike many legends who lose their spark later in their career, the duo is still active to this very day. Without a doubt, 50 years from now, when we talk about the legends of our era, you can't spell legendary without the letters N-E-R-D.